The Galactic Council chamber was bigger than any building on Earth. Helen Wright stood in the center of the vast room and felt very small. Around her sat representatives from 400 different alien species. Some floated in the air like jellyfish. Some had scales, some had fur. Some looked like they were made of crystal or metal. All of them were staring at her. Helen took a deep breath. She had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. Ever since humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel and made contact with the galaxy beyond their solar system. Earth wanted a seat on the council. Earth wanted to have a voice in decisions that affected the galaxy. But wanting something and getting it were two very different things. The High Arbiter spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator in Helen's ear turned the alien words into English. Ambassador Wright of Earth, your petition for full council membership has been reviewed. There is opposition to your request. Helen already knew this. The Krellian Empire had made their position very clear. They thought humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be given power in galactic affairs. It did not matter that Earth had been peaceful in all their dealings with other species. It did not matter that humanity had shared their technology and asked for nothing in return. The Krellians had decided that humans were a threat. War leader Drathkul rose from his seat. The Krellian was massive. He stood 9 feet tall, and his body was covered in thick red scales that looked like armor. His home world had twice the gravity of Earth, and his species had evolved to be incredibly strong. Helen had seen videos of Krellians bending steel bars with their bare hands. Drathkul was their greatest warrior. The Krellian Empire formally objects to Earth's membership, Drathkul said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. Humans have been in space for only 5 years. They are children playing with toys they do not understand. They wage war on their own planet. They cannot be trusted with the power of a council seat. Helen felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. Humanity has made mistakes in our past. We do not deny this, but we have learned from those mistakes. We have brought peace to our world. We seek only to learn from the elder species of the galaxy and to contribute what we can. Words mean nothing, Drathkul said. Action is what matters. The Krellian Empire invokes the ancient right of trial by combat. Let Earth send their finest warrior to face me in the grand arena. If your champion defeats me, the Krellian Empire will withdraw all objections. If I defeat your champion, Earth will accept observer status for the next 50 cycles and will make no further petitions for membership. The chamber erupted in noise. Hundreds of different species all talking at once in hundreds of different languages. Helen's translator could not keep up. She stood frozen. Trial by combat was an ancient tradition among the spacefaring races. When diplomacy failed, champions would fight in the arena. It was considered honorable. It was considered fair, but it was also brutal. The High Arbiter raised one crystalline appendage, and the chamber fell silent. Ambassador Wright, does Earth accept the challenge? Helen wanted to say no. She wanted to tell them that humanity had moved beyond settling disputes with violence. But she knew what would happen if she refused. Earth would be seen as weak, cowardly. They would never be taken seriously again. She activated her communication implant and sent an urgent message back to Earth. They want trial by combat. We need a champion immediately. The response came from General Philip Hayes at Earth Defense Command. Understood. We are sending Jake Morrison. He will arrive at Nexus Prime in 48 hours. Helen knew the name, but had never met the man. Jake Morrison was former Special Forces. He had served in multiple combat zones on Earth. His record showed numerous commendations for bravery and tactical excellence. It also showed several disciplinary actions for disobeying orders when he thought those orders would get people killed. He was currently assigned to security detail on one of the lunar stations. Helen looked up at the High Arbiter. Earth accepts the challenge. We will present our champion in 3 days." Drathkul laughed. The sound was like rocks tumbling down a mountain. "Excellent. I look forward to teaching the humans humility. I have fought 17 times in the grand arena. I have never been defeated. Your champion will be the 18th. The session ended, and Helen returned to Earth's small embassy on Nexus Prime. The embassy was modest compared to those of older species. Just a few rooms in a diplomatic tower. Her assistant, Peter Collins, was waiting for her. Peter was young and nervous. This was his first assignment off Earth. "Is it true?" Peter asked. "Are we really going to fight the Krellians?" "Yes," Helen said. She felt tired. "Get me everything we have on Krellian physiology, fighting styles, weaknesses, anything that might help." Peter nodded and hurried away. Helen sat down at her desk and put her head in her hands. She had spent 5 years building relationships with other species. 5 years of careful diplomacy. And now it all came down to one fight. One human against an alien warrior who had never lost. She thought about Jake Morrison. She had read his file during the council session. He was 34 years old. Average height for a human male. Military service from age 18 to 32, expert in multiple forms of hand-to-hand combat. Psych evaluations described him as intelligent, stubborn, and possessed of an almost reckless disregard for his own safety when others were at risk. Helen hoped that would be enough. She pulled up a video of Drathkul's most recent arena fight. The Krellian had faced a warrior from the Vexthar species. The Vexthar were insectoid creatures with razor-sharp claws and lightning-fast reflexes. The fight had lasted less than 3 minutes. Drathkul had simply overpowered his opponent with brute strength. The Vexthar warrior had survived, but barely. How was a human supposed to beat something like that? Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They did not have natural armor or weapons. What humans had was their minds, their ability to adapt, their refusal to give up even when all hope seemed lost. Helen hoped that would be enough. 2 days later, Jake Morrison arrived at Nexus Prime. Helen met him at the diplomatic transport terminal. She saw a man of average build with short brown hair and a scar on his jaw. He was carrying a simple duffel bag. He looked completely unremarkable. He looked like someone you might pass on the street and never notice. But his eyes were different. They were calm and focused. The eyes of someone who had seen terrible things and survived them. "Mr. Morrison," Helen said. "Thank you for coming." Jake shook her hand. "Just Jake. And I did not really have a choice, did I?" "No," Helen admitted. "I suppose not. Did they brief you on what you are facing?" "Big Lizard wants to fight me to prove humans are too violent for space politics," Jake said. "I see the irony." Helen found herself almost smiling despite the situation. "This is serious. Drathkul has never lost. His species is much stronger than humans. Their bones are denser. Their muscles are more powerful. On paper, you have no chance." "Good thing we are not fighting on paper, then," Jake said. Helen took Jake to the Earth Embassy and showed him to his quarters. The room was small but comfortable. A bed, a desk, a bathroom, and a window that looked out over the alien city of Nexus Prime. Jake dropped his duffel bag on the bed and walked to the window. Outside, he could see buildings that twisted in impossible shapes, flying vehicles that moved without any visible means of propulsion. Aliens of every description walking or floating or crawling through the streets below. "It is beautiful," Jake said quietly. "I grew up in a small town in Montana. Never thought I would see anything like this." "You still have time to back out," Helen said. She did not know why she said it. Perhaps she felt guilty for asking this man to risk his life for politics. "We could claim medical reasons. Find another solution." Jake turned to look at her. "With respect, Ambassador, if I back out now, Earth loses. The galaxy will see us as cowards. How many human lives might that cost in the future when we need allies and no one takes us seriously? Helen nodded slowly. She had thought the same thing. The fight is in 2 days. What do you need to prepare? Time to train. Information about my opponent. And I want to meet him. Meet Drathkul? Why? I always like to look a man in the eye before I fight him, Jake said. Helps me understand who they are, what drives them, how they think. Helen was not sure this was a good idea, but she agreed to arrange it. She spent the rest of the day gathering every piece of information she could find about Krellian physiology and fighting techniques. Peter helped her compile it all into a report. They brought it to Jake that evening. Jake was in the embassy gym doing exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, running in place. His body was covered in sweat, but he did not look tired. He looked focused. When he saw Helen and Peter, he stopped and grabbed a towel. What did you find? Jake asked. Peter opened his tablet and began reading. Krellians evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bone density is 3 times that of humans. Their muscle fiber is denser and stronger. They have scales that act like natural armor. They are resistant to blunt force trauma. They have excellent endurance. They do not tire easily. What about weaknesses? Jake asked. Peter scrolled through the data. Their scales are thinner at the joints, elbows, knees, neck. Their eyes are sensitive to bright lights, but the arena lighting is regulated, so you cannot use that. They have a slower reaction time than humans, but their reach advantage makes up for it. Jake nodded thoughtfully. What about their fighting style? Overwhelming force, Helen said. Every video we have shows the same pattern. They close distance quickly. They use their size and strength to dominate their opponent. They have never needed to be subtle or strategic because they have always been the strongest fighter in the arena. That is useful, Jake said. What else? Drathkul specifically has fought 17 times. He has won by submission 12 times and by knockout 5 times. He has never killed an opponent, but several have been seriously injured. The medical drones in the arena can handle most trauma, but there are limits. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I need to meet him. Can you arrange that for tonight? Helen made the request through official channels. To her surprise, Drathkul agreed immediately. They met in a neutral chamber designed for diplomatic meetings. The room was large and empty except for a few chairs designed for different body types. Drathkul was already there when they arrived. Up close, the Krellian was even more intimidating. His scales gleamed under the lights. His golden eyes tracked Jake as he entered the room. The alien warrior was easily twice Jake's size. His arms were thicker than Jake's legs. His clawed hands looked like they could tear through metal. You are small, Drathkul said. His translator rendered his words with a tone of disappointment. I expected Earth to send someone more impressive. Jake walked closer. He showed no fear. Size is not everything. I have fought big men before. They all fell down eventually. Not like me, Drathkul said. I have trained for 60 cycles. That is 60 of your Earth years. I have studied every major fighting technique in the galaxy. I have faced warriors from species you have never heard of. What makes you think you can defeat me? Because I do not need to be better than you, Jake said. I just need to be different enough that what you know does not work. You have fought 17 times. You have developed patterns, habits. I have watched your fights. You rely on your strength because it has always been enough. But what happens when strength is not enough? Drathkul's eyes narrowed. You think you can outsmart me, human? I think I can adapt faster than you can adjust. Humans are good at that. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons or armor. What we have is our ability to look at a problem and find a solution even when everyone says there is no solution. Bold words from such a small creature. I did not come here to trade insults, Jake said. I came here to look you in the eye and tell you that I respect you as a warrior. Tomorrow we fight. One of us will win. One of us will lose. But it does not have to be personal. You are doing your duty to your empire. I am doing my duty to my world. May the best fighter win." Drathkul was silent for a long moment. Then something that might have been respect flickered in those golden eyes. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Jake Morrison. I have not decided which. But I will enjoy testing you tomorrow. It will be an honorable fight. That is all I ask." They left the chamber and returned to the embassy. Peter looked shaken. "He is enormous. How are you supposed to fight something that big?" "Same way you eat an elephant," Jake said. "One bite at a time." "What does that mean?" "It means I cannot beat him with one big move. So I have to beat him with 1,000 small ones, wear him down, make him make mistakes, find his weaknesses, and exploit them." "And if you cannot find any weaknesses?" Helen asked quietly. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Then I make some." That night, Helen could not sleep. She kept thinking about what they were asking Jake to do. He was a soldier. He had agreed to serve. But was it right to send him into a fight he might not survive? She got up and walked through the embassy. She found Jake on the roof, looking up at the alien stars. "Cannot sleep either?" Jake asked. "No," Helen admitted. She stood beside him. "I keep thinking that this is wrong, that we should find another way." "There is no other way," Jake said. "Not one that does not make humanity look weak. And in this galaxy, weakness gets you killed. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. If we show strength now, other species will think twice before threatening us." "You could die tomorrow." "I could," Jake agreed. "I have made my peace with that. I have been a soldier for 16 years. I have seen friends die. I have come close to dying myself more times than I can count. Death does not scare me anymore. What scares me is the idea that I might not do enough, that I might fail, and that failure might cost other people their lives." "You are a remarkable person, Jake Morrison." "I am just a man doing his job," Jake said. "Tomorrow I will step into that arena and I will fight with everything I have. Win or lose. I will make damn sure that everyone watching knows that humans do not quit. That is the real message. Not whether I win or lose, but that we showed up. That we fought. That we did not back down even when the odds were against us." Helen felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "For what it is worth, I am glad you are here. I am glad Earth sent you." "So am I," Jake said. "Now go get some sleep, Ambassador. You will want to be well rested for tomorrow. One way or another, it is going to be a day people remember." The grand arena of Nexus Prime was carved from a single massive crystal that rose from the planet's surface like a mountain. Inside, the space could hold 200,000 spectators, and every seat was filled. Beings from hundreds of worlds had come to watch the fight. Some had traveled for weeks just to be there in person. Billions more would watch through live feeds broadcast across the galaxy. Helen sat in the diplomatic section with other Earth representatives. Peter was beside her, looking pale. Around them sat ambassadors from other species. Some looked curious, some looked amused, a few looked sympathetic. Everyone had heard about the upcoming fight. Everyone knew the odds. Most expected the human to lose quickly. The arena floor was a flat circle 200 feet across. The surface was made of a black material that was supposed to provide equal traction for all body types. Medical drones hovered at the edges, ready to intervene if a fighter's life signs became critical. The rules were simple: no weapons, no killing strikes after submission. Fight until one warrior yielded or could not continue. A voice boomed through the arena in hundreds of languages. Representing the Krellian Empire, 17 victories, 0 defeats, war leader Drathkul. The crowd erupted in cheers. Drathkul entered through a massive gate. He wore only a simple loincloth that revealed his enormous muscular frame. His red scales gleamed under the bright lights. He raised his arms and roared. The sound echoed through the arena. He looked like a god of war. The announcer spoke again. Representing Earth, 0 arena victories, 0 defeats, Jake Morrison. The cheering turned to murmurs and scattered laughter. Jake walked out through the opposite gate. He wore simple black shorts and a tank top. His feet were bare. He looked tiny compared to his opponent. Several species in the crowd made sounds that the translators could not interpret, but the meaning was clear. They thought this was a joke. Helen closed her eyes briefly. This had been a terrible mistake. They should have refused the challenge, should have accepted observer status, should have waited. She was sending a man to die for politics. On the arena floor, Jake rolled his shoulders and shook out his arms. He had been in worse situations. He had faced enemies with guns while he had nothing. He had fought in the dark, in the cold, in the mud. This was just another fight, just another problem to solve. He looked across the arena at Drathkul and felt calm wash over him. Fear was there, but he pushed it down. Fear was useful, but it could not control him. The High Arbiter's voice resonated through the space. Combatants, you know the rules. No weapons. No fatal strikes after submission. No outside interference. The match ends when one fighter yields or cannot continue. Do you both understand? I understand, Drathkul rumbled. Yes, Jake said. Then begin. Drathkul moved with shocking speed for something so large. He closed the distance in 3 massive strides. His strategy was obvious. End this quickly. Use his reach and strength to overwhelm the smaller opponent before the human could do anything clever. Jake did not retreat. Instead, he ducked under the first massive swing and moved inside Drathkul's guard. The crowd gasped. Most fighters tried to stay at range against Krellians. Jake drove his elbow into what he hoped was a vulnerable point where the scales met at the Krellian's ribcage. It was like hitting a wall. Pain shot through Jake's arm, but Drathkul grunted. It was not much of a reaction, but it was something. The scales were thinner there, just like the reports had said. Drathkul's backhand caught Jake across the shoulder. The impact sent him flying. Jake hit the arena floor and rolled. Stars exploded in his vision. His shoulder felt like it was on fire. He tasted blood in his mouth. He forced himself to stand up quickly. You are brave but foolish, Drathkul said. Surrender now, and I will make it quick. Jake spat blood onto the black floor. Not a chance. They circled each other. Drathkul attacked again, throwing heavy punches that would have killed a human if they landed clean. Jake dodged and weaved. He was faster, his reflexes were quicker, but he could not keep this up forever. One solid hit would end the fight. Jake waited for an opening. When Drathkul overextended on a right cross, Jake moved in and targeted the Krellian's knee. He kicked hard at the side of the joint where the scales were thinnest. Drathkul's leg buckled slightly. Not much, but enough to show that the great warrior could be hurt. The crowd was getting louder. They had expected a quick execution. Instead, they were seeing an actual fight. The human was landing hits, small ones, but they were accumulating. Drathkul was bleeding from several shallow cuts where Jake's strikes had found gaps in his scales. But Jake was bleeding too. More than Drathkul. His face was bruised. His ribs ached. Every breath was painful. He had taken several glancing blows that would have broken bones in a normal street fight. Only his conditioning and pain tolerance kept him moving. You are tougher than I expected, Drathkul admitted. But this changes nothing. You cannot win. Watch me, Jake said. He attacked again, using speed and angles that the Krellian could not match. Jake had been watching carefully. Drathkul favored his right side. He telegraphed his heavy strikes with a slight shift in his weight. He had patterns, habits built from a lifetime of winning through superior strength. Jake was learning those patterns, memorizing them, planning how to exploit them. 3 minutes into the fight, Jake saw his opportunity. Drathkul threw a huge overhand right. Jake sidestepped and grabbed the extended arm. He used the Krellian's own momentum and tried to throw him. He did not have the strength to actually take Drathkul down, but he managed to pull the massive warrior off balance. Drathkul stumbled. For the first time in 17 fights, the great Krellian warrior looked uncertain. The crowd's murmur grew to a roar. Council members leaned forward in their seats. This was not supposed to be happening. Jake pressed his advantage. He targeted the joints with quick, precise strikes. The left knee that he had already damaged, the right elbow, the neck where scales met softer tissue. None of the blows were devastating by themselves, but they were adding up. Drathkul was moving slower now. His reactions were delayed by fractions of a second. It was not much, but it was enough. Helen found herself gripping the armrest so hard her knuckles were white. "He is doing it," she whispered. "He is actually doing it." Peter could not speak. He just stared at the arena floor where a human was fighting a being twice his size and somehow not losing. Drathkul roared in frustration. He abandoned his technique and charged like an angry beast. Pure power, pure rage. This human had wounded his pride, and now he would crush him. Jake waited. Timing was everything. When Drathkul was almost on top of him, Jake dropped low and swept at the Krellian's injured leg with all his strength. Drathkul crashed to the arena floor for the first time in his career. The sound that erupted from the crowd was unlike anything Helen had ever heard. 200,000 beings from hundreds of species all reacting in shock at the same moment. The noise was deafening. It shook the crystal walls of the arena. But the fight was not over. Drathkul rolled to his feet. He was slower now. His left leg was not supporting his weight properly. His golden eyes burned with something beyond competition. This was about honor now, about legacy, about everything he had built. "I will not lose to a human," he snarled. "Then you are going to have a very bad day," Jake replied. He was breathing hard. His body was screaming at him to stop. But he had come too far to quit now. They circled each other again, but everything had changed. Drathkul was no longer the invincible warrior who had entered the arena. His left leg was damaged. He was bleeding from multiple cuts. His breathing was labored. For the first time in 60 years of training and fighting, he was facing an opponent who had adapted to his style, who had found his weaknesses, who refused to be intimidated. Jake was in bad shape, too. His ribs were cracked. He could feel it every time he breathed. His left eye was swelling shut. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His hands were torn and bleeding from striking Drathkul's scales, but pain was just information. It told him his body was damaged, but it did not control him. He had learned long ago how to push through pain, how to keep fighting when every instinct screamed at him to stop. Drathkul feinted high and struck low. His massive fist connected with Jake's ribs on the left side. Something cracked. Jake felt his body want to shut down, to collapse, to give up. The pain was unlike anything he had experienced. He staggered back, gasping for air. The crowd held its breath. The human looked finished. Everyone expected him to yield now. It would be the smart thing to do, the honorable thing. He had fought well. No one would blame him for surrendering. Jake did not surrender. Instead, he used the pain. He channeled it into rage and determination and threw himself at Drathkul. The Krellian was not expecting it. He thought the fight was over. Jake climbed the larger warrior like he was scaling a mountain. He wrapped his legs around Drathkul's torso and locked his right arm around that thick neck. It was a chokehold, one of the oldest submission techniques in human martial arts. Jake squeezed with everything he had left. His injured ribs screamed in protest. His damaged hands could barely maintain their grip, but he held on. Drathkul thrashed violently. His clawed hands reached back and scraped at Jake's arms. Deep cuts appeared. Blood flowed freely. The Krellian tried to slam Jake into the arena floor, but Jake held on. He wrapped his legs tighter and squeezed harder. Drathkul's movements grew weaker. His golden eyes went wide. The great warrior was running out of air. His body was not getting the oxygen it needed. For the first time in his life, Drathkul felt real fear. "Yield," Jake gasped into the Krellian's ear. "You do not have to die for this. Just yield." The arena was completely silent. Everyone watched as the impossible played out before them. A human, smaller and weaker in every measurable way, had the great Krellian champion in a submission hold. Drathkul's arm came up slowly. His hand opened. The universal gesture of surrender. Jake released him immediately and rolled away. He collapsed onto his back, unable to move. Medical drones swarmed both fighters. Scanners analyzed their injuries. Synthesized voices called out damage reports in multiple languages. The arena remained silent for 3 full seconds. Then it exploded. The noise was beyond description. Cheers, shouts, sounds of amazement in hundreds of alien languages. The crowd was on their feet. Even species that had supported the Krellian Empire's position could not help but be impressed. They had just witnessed something that would be talked about for generations. Helen stood up slowly. Tears were running down her face. Peter was laughing and crying at the same time. Other Earth diplomats were hugging each other. They had done it. Against all odds, against all logic, a human had defeated the galaxy's most feared warrior. On the arena floor, Jake tried to sit up, but could not. The medical drones were injecting him with something that dulled the pain. He could hear the crowd, but it sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. He turned his head and saw Drathkul being helped to his feet by other medical drones. The Krellian warrior looked stunned, defeated, lost. "Good fight," Jake managed to say. Drathkul looked at him. For a moment, the great warrior said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes, a good fight." They transported Jake to the Earth Embassy medical facility. The doctors worked on him for hours. 3 cracked ribs, fractured left wrist, severe bruising across 40% of his body, mild concussion, numerous lacerations. The medical technology available on Nexus Prime was far beyond anything on Earth. They put him back together piece by piece. But he would still need weeks to fully heal. Helen sat beside his bed while he slept. She thought about what had happened, about what it meant. The entire galaxy had watched a human defeat their most feared warrior. Every calculation they had made about Earth was now in question. Species that had ignored Earth's diplomatic overtures were now requesting meetings. Military alliances that had rejected human participation were now expressing interest. But more than that, humanity had proven something important. They had shown that they belonged in this galaxy, that they could hold their own against species that had been in space for thousands of years, that they were not children playing with toys they did not understand. They were survivors, adapters, warriors who refused to quit even when facing impossible odds. Jake woke up 6 hours later. Everything hurt, but it was a distant kind of pain. The drugs were working. He saw Helen sitting beside his bed and managed a weak smile. "Did we win?" he asked. His voice was rough. "Yes, Jake, we won." "Good." He closed his eyes for a moment. "How is Drathkul?" "He is fine. His injuries were less severe than yours. His pride took more damage than his body." "I can imagine." Helen leaned forward. "Jake, do you understand what you have done? The Council voted 2 hours ago. Earth has been granted full membership effective immediately. 17 species have requested formal diplomatic relations. 3 different military alliances want to discuss joint training operations. You changed everything." "I just did my job," Jake said. "You did far more than that. You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of." "What we are capable of is getting beaten up really badly and still not quitting," Jake said with a slight grin. "That is pretty much our specialty?" Helen laughed despite herself. "There is something else. Drathkul has requested to meet with you again." "He wants a rematch already?" "No, he wants to talk." The meeting happened the next day. Jake could walk, but it hurt. A lot. He made his way to the neutral chamber with Helen's help. Drathkul was waiting there. The great warrior looked different now. His scales had lost their shine. He carried himself with visible humility. It was strange to see such a powerful being looking so uncertain. "Jake Morrison," Drathkul began. "I have lived for 60 cycles. I have studied war and combat as the highest arts. Yesterday you taught me something I should have learned long ago. Strength without wisdom is hollow." Jake did not know what to say, so he waited. "You adapted. You learned during our combat." "This is a human gift, yes?" "I do not know if it is a gift. Maybe it is just desperation. Humans have always had to adapt or die. We are not the strongest or fastest. We just keep trying different things until something works." Drathkul's head tilted in what might have been a nod. "The Krelian Empire has built its reputation on unchanging strength. Perhaps we have become rigid. I wish to propose something. I would like to train with human warriors. To learn this adaptability." Helen's eyes went wide. "You want cultural exchange? Military cooperation?" "I want to ensure that next time a human enters an arena, they have an ally who understands their worth," Drathkul said. He extended his massive hand to Jake. "And perhaps so that I may have a rematch someday when you are healed and I have learned humility." Jake shook the offered hand. Despite everything, he found himself grinning. "I would like that. But next time, maybe we keep it to friendly sparring?" "Agreed," Drathkul said. News of the meeting between Jake and Drathkul spread through the council faster than light-speed communications. Earth had not only won a seat through combat, but had gained respect and opened diplomatic channels that typically took decades to establish. The human approach to problems, throwing themselves at impossible challenges with creativity and determination, had become a subject of intense interest across the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, Jake became something he had never wanted to be: a celebrity, a symbol. Beings from dozens of species wanted to meet him. News services wanted interviews. Military academies wanted him to speak to their students. He agreed to exactly 3 interviews and then refused all others. He was a soldier, not a politician or a celebrity. He just wanted to do his job, but his impact remained even after he stopped giving interviews. Combat instructors from 12 different species requested access to human military training programs. The concept they called adaptive warfare became a topic of serious academic study. Universities across the galaxy began researching human history, particularly human military history, trying to understand what made this young species so effective in combat. Helen stood on the observation deck of Earth's new council embassy. It was much larger than the old one. Earth now had the resources and the status to maintain a proper diplomatic presence. She watched the traffic of ships from countless worlds flowing through Nexus Prime's orbital lanes. It was beautiful and strange and wonderful. Peter joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee, real coffee from Earth, one of the perks of increased trade relations. "Strange, is it not?" Peter said. "We spent 5 years trying to convince them we belonged here through careful diplomacy. Then Jake punched our way to a seat at the table in under 15 minutes. Helen accepted the coffee gratefully. "Humanity in a nutshell, really. We talk softly, but when push comes to shove, we are capable of incredible things. The trick is making sure everyone knows we prefer the talking. Do you think we are ready for this?" "Full council membership means responsibility for galactic affairs, not just Earth. I do not know if anyone is ever truly ready, but I have learned something from watching Jake fight. Humans do not wait until we are ready. We step into the ring. We figure it out as we go. We refuse to quit until we find a way forward." Far below in the training facilities beneath the embassy, Jake was working through his physical therapy routine. His body still ached, but he pushed through it. Pain was temporary. Weakness was a choice. A group of junior diplomats and security personnel had gathered to watch. He had reluctantly agreed to answer their questions while he worked. "What was going through your mind when you first saw Drathkul in the arena?" someone asked. Jake paused mid-stretch. "Honestly, I thought this is going to hurt." And it did. But pain is temporary. Giving up is forever. "Were you scared?" "Terrified. Anyone who steps into a fight without fear is either lying or stupid. Fear keeps you sharp. You just cannot let it stop you from doing what needs to be done," another voice called out. "What does it feel like knowing you changed history?" Jake considered this for a long moment. "I was just doing my job. The real heroes are people like Ambassador Wright who spend years building relationships and trust. I just got to be the punctuation mark at the end of their sentence." He resumed his stretches. "But if there is one thing I want people to remember, it is this. Earth did not win that fight because I am special. We won because that is what humans do. We get knocked down and we get back up. Every single time. That is our real strength, and it is something every person carries with them." The group dispersed eventually, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and his recovery. Through the window he could see the stars. More of them were accessible to humanity now than ever before. Somewhere out there, other species were recalculating what they thought they knew about the strange, determined primates from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Days turned into weeks. Jake's injuries healed. Earth settled into its new role as a full council member. Helen found herself busier than ever before. There were committees to serve on, votes to cast, alliances to build. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. One morning she received an unexpected message. Drathkul wanted to visit Earth. He wanted to see the human home world. He wanted to train with human warriors as he had proposed. Helen brought the request to Jake. "What do you think?" she asked. Jake was in the gym as usual. He had regained most of his strength and was back to his normal training routine. "I think it is a good idea. Drathkul is a good warrior and an honorable being. He was doing his duty just like I was. If he wants to learn from us, we should teach him. And maybe we can learn from him too. You do not hold any anger toward him? He nearly killed you." "No," Jake said simply. "We were both doing what we had to do. There is no point in holding grudges over that. Besides, I think he and I could be friends. We understand each other in a way most people would not." Helen smiled. "You are a better person than I am, Jake Morrison. I doubt that. You are the one who has to deal with council politics every day. I just had to win one fight." Drathkul's visit to Earth became a major diplomatic event. He arrived with a small delegation of Krellian warriors and scholars. They spent 2 weeks visiting military bases, training facilities, and historical sites. Drathkul was particularly interested in human military history. He studied the great battles and campaigns. He tried to understand how such a young species had developed such effective combat doctrine. Jake spent several days training with Drathkul and his warriors. They learned from each other. The Krellians taught humans about fighting in high-gravity environments and how to maximize strength efficiency. Humans taught the Krellians about adaptability, unconventional tactics, and how to use an opponent's expectations against them. On the last day of the visit, Drathkul and Jake stood on a hillside overlooking a valley in Montana. This was where Jake had grown up, where he had learned to hunt and track and survive in the wilderness. "Your world is beautiful," Drathkul said. "Softer than my home, but beautiful." "Thank you," Jake said. "I have been thinking about what you said, about strength without wisdom being hollow. Yes? I think maybe it goes both ways. Wisdom without strength is just as hollow. You need both. The trick is knowing when to use which one." Drathkul made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are wise for such a young being, Jake Morrison. I am glad we fought. I am more glad that we are now friends. So am I." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains. Two warriors from different worlds who had tried to destroy each other and had instead found mutual respect. Back on Nexus Prime, Helen prepared for another council session, Earth's first major vote as a full member. It was about resource allocation for colony worlds. Not the most exciting topic, but important. She reviewed her notes and thought about how far they had come. 5 years ago, Earth had been alone in the galaxy, unknown and untested. Now they had allies, trade partners, and a voice in galactic affairs. It had cost them. It had required sacrifice, but they had proven that humanity belonged among the stars. The council chamber was full as always. Representatives from 400 species gathered to debate and vote and shape the future of the galaxy. Helen took Earth's seat with pride. When it came time to vote, she pressed the appropriate button and watched as Earth's position was recorded alongside all the others. After the session, several ambassadors approached her. They wanted to discuss potential collaborations, joint research projects, cultural exchanges, military cooperation. Earth had opportunities now that would have been unthinkable a few months ago. That evening, Helen returned to her quarters and composed a message to send back to Earth. She wrote about the council session, about the opportunities opening up, about the future that awaited humanity among the stars. At the end, she added a personal note. "We are here because one man refused to quit when everyone said he should. We are here because Jake Morrison showed the galaxy what humans are made of. But more importantly, we are here because we were willing to take a chance. To step into the arena. To risk everything for the possibility of something better. That is the spirit that will carry us forward. That is what makes us human." She sent the message and looked out at the alien stars. Somewhere out there, Jake Morrison was recovering, training, preparing for whatever came next. Somewhere out there, Drathkul was learning that strength and wisdom together were greater than either alone. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning that humanity was not just another species. They were something special, something determined. Something that would not quit, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. And in the grand arena, maintenance crews cleaned the black floor and prepared for the next challenge. But everyone who worked there knew that when they erased the bloodstains, they were erasing evidence of the day everything changed. The day a human warrior stepped into the ring and taught the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is not the strongest or the fastest. It is the one who simply refuses to quit.